Human culture is undergoing a mass extinction event. It's happening quietly, erased from history for one simple reason. The medium is interactive. You see, a book sits steadily on a shelf. A physical film is sealed tightly in a canister. But our digital worlds, they require constant upkeep, server maintenance, external architecture. We are literally the first generation to create a global culture that can be permanently deleted with a single command. Look at the landscape of commercially available titles from before the year 2010. It's staggering. 87% of gaming's foundational history has been systematically removed from public access. It's just vanished into the corporate ether, completely unplayable through official channels. A mere 13% survives commercially today. To put that into perspective, the sheer scale of this erasure mirrors the catastrophic loss of silent-era films and pre-World War II audio recordings. An entire era of digital existence just gone. The tragedy strikes hardest in our online realms. A single-player game encoded on a physical cartridge is a persistent product. It's a tangible object. It can sit undisturbed in a box for decades, ready to power on the moment you plug it in. But an online world? That's merely a service waiting for execution. When a publisher pulls the plug, they aren't just stopping the sale of a game. They're pulling the life support from living, breathing communities. They execute an entire reality, taking with it the economies, the friendships, and the intricately built environments that millions of people called home. Think about the vast digital spaces people inhabit daily, the places where time and identity are heavily invested. When the host servers are abruptly shut down, what's left behind are defunct MMO servers. These are digital ghost sites where gaming history is systematically erased by a combination of technological obsolescence and rigid legal barriers. Inside vanished monuments like Star Wars Galaxies and PlayStation Home, thousands of hours of human connection and collective memory remain trapped in the void, permanently inaccessible to the very populations that built them. But from these shadows emerges the dark stack. This is the vital, meticulously reverse-engineered architecture required to perform digital necromancy on abandoned worlds. It is an underground ecosystem built to bootleg dead spaces back into existence. To make this happen, rogue preservationists must piece together the precise server software, line by broken line, that the original corporate developers often lost themselves or locked permanently away in a vault. The extraction of this foundational code is not some patient archaeological dig. It is a desperate race against hardware obsolescence. The physical magnetic storage holding the foundational creations of the 80s and 90s degrades over a strict, unforgiving lifespan. 30 years. For many early titles, that clock has already run out entirely. The magnetic fields weaken, the data corrupts, and history simply fades at the molecular level. This inescapable physical decay is known as bit rot. It's the literal evaporation of data off a physical disk as the magnetic substrate ultimately fails. This forces underground preservationists into a frantic cat-and-mouse game, scrambling to extract and stabilize history before the physical media fails completely. It's a daily, relentless battle against the very laws of thermodynamics. In this battle, the original source code represents the Holy Grail. It is, quite literally, the film negative of the digital age. But that negative is almost never available. Without this core architecture, preservationists are left entirely in the dark. They have to blindly rebuild complex mechanics, mathematical formulas, and simulated physics from the scattered echoes of old YouTube videos and captured screenshots. Imagine trying to reverse engineer the fundamental laws of physics for an entire universe just by watching a blurry video of someone jumping. The DMCA dungeon, the legal guardians of the graveyard. Because decaying floppy disks and failing hard drives are only the first enemy. The true guardians of this digital graveyard don't wield code. They operate in courtrooms. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act treats the desperate act of digital archaeology as criminal circumvention. Under this strict legal framework, preserving out-of-print worlds is equated to active software piracy. The law makes absolutely no distinction between a bootlegger stealing a modern release for profit and an archivist trying to save a 20-year-old dead server from extinction. To keep their archives legal, legitimate historians have to beg the Librarian of Congress every 3 years for basic temporary archival rights. Even when a minor victory is won, like granting museums the right to bypass verification servers for environments that are no longer reasonably available, it is immediately neutralized by the on-premises requirement. You can't log into these preserved global networks from your own home. You are legally required to physically travel to the institution to access the server on an isolated local machine. This restriction reveals the profound absurdity of the law. The on-premises rule effectively treats digital history as a physical artifact, willfully ignoring the global, distributed nature of the medium. It chains a borderless, infinite digital world to a single physical chair in a quiet reading room. It treats a massive multiplayer internet environment as if it were a fragile piece of ancient pottery. Radical Labs, the total mod and co-creation. Deep within this legal labyrinth, the underground resistance refuses to remain static. It evolves beyond mere preservation. Initially, the ultimate goal was pure, untainted preservation. Emulators created what are known as Blizz-like servers, these rigid environments aimed for strict one-to-one historical replication, freezing the environment exactly as it was the day it died, preserving the authentic experience right down to the last original bug. But moving past that desire for perfect historical replication, the movement began experimenting with the dead code itself. The preservationists evolved. They became the new architects. These experimental laboratories birthed fun servers. These are the radical labs of the dark stock, where developers use dead code to build entirely new realities. They shatter the original boundaries completely. By extracting the core mechanics, the physics engines, and the vast asset libraries from abandoned worlds, they construct something entirely unprecedented. It's digital recycling on a massive scale. The manifestations of this are vast. Take a project like Turtle WoW. It uses the foundational base client of vanilla World of Warcraft, but instead of just preserving it in Amber, the developers have injected entirely custom lore. New playable races, original dungeons, expanding the universe far beyond the boundaries set by the original creators. Or consider Shinobi's story. This project takes the engine of a traditional Western fantasy client, Wrath of the Lich King, and entirely guts it. It repurposes that architecture to build a fully realized, anime-inspired ninja role-playing game from scratch. The dead code becomes a canvas. These are recognized as game-class experiences. They are fan-led, co-created expansions that push the boundaries of what these obsolete engines can do. The profound irony here is that these amateur, underground developers move faster and take significantly greater creative risks than the massive original corporate developers ever dared. The community seizes absolute ownership of the forward momentum, breathing highly experimental life into a dormant architecture. Fueling these ghost sites and vibrant new realities is Precarious Playbore. This represents thousands upon thousands of hours of anonymous, unrecognized volunteer work, operating entirely in the void left by canceled end-user license agreements. These are dedicated individuals coding in the dead of night, managing massive server architectures, and moderating global communities without a single cent of compensation. It's immense human labor performed under the constant, looming threat of a corporate cease and desist order that could legally wipe out years of work in an instant. Treaties of the Dark Stack. Forcing the institution's hand. Because sometimes this relentless underground dedication becomes too massive to ignore. Consider the dramatic fate of City of Heroes. When its official servers went completely dark in 2012, the community refused to let it die. A secret underground server named Score was quietly spun up. For 6 long years, it sustained a highly dedicated, hidden community operating in total isolation. But in 2019, a rogue player leaked the server's existence. This fracture in the silence forced a direct, unavoidable confrontation with the rights holder, NCSoft. But instead of delivering the expected legal destruction, a fascinating pivot occurred. The corporation granted the volunteer homecoming team a near unprecedented official operating license. The underground became the institution. Similar fragile peace treaties exist across the divide. The Project 1999 Compromise stands as a written, good faith treaty where Daybreak Games Company formally recognizes the nonprofit fan emulation of classic EverQuest. But make no mistake, this is a delicate tightrope walk. The fans are doing all the heavy lifting of historical preservation, but the corporation still holds the guillotine. The peace holds only as long as the fan creation doesn't threaten the corporate bottom line. The ideological divide remains stark. The industry maintains a strict legal stance, framing this entire underground as a den of pirates, arguing that private servers inherently harm the financial viability of future official remasters. Copyright holders claim the absolute legal prerogative to keep their dead code permanently sealed in the corporate vault, regardless of its cultural value. Conversely, for the digital archaeologist, reclaiming these spaces through the dark stack is the absolute only defense against a total corporate blackout of our shared digital past. To the preservationists, bootlegging has become a vital moral necessity to maintain a coherent record of the internet itself. The erasure is ongoing. The ghost sites wait in the shadows of obsolete drives and corporate archives, requiring daring extraction to breathe again. The stakes for our digital heritage have never been higher. Which dead MMO world would you risk a legal battle to bring back to life?